How's it going? Thanks for joining us today. It's your co-host, Dervin with Synonyms of Sound.
And this is your second co-host, Tony. And I'd like to introduce JK the Animator to our show. How you doing, JK?
Hey, I'm not too bad. Just a bit hungry. Could do some dinner, but we here. So yeah.
All right, all right. So what time is it in the UK right now?
It's 7:15 p.m. here right now.
Got it. All right, cool, cool. It's 2 p.m.
And
our time
you
in the
guys?
East Coast.
East Coast would be now like 5, 4, 5 ish, 6,
Nah, it's 2 our time too. We're
2.
now
Oh,
about we're
wow.
now about to kick off our afternoon.
Oh damn. Okay. You got a whole day ahead of you. That's nice.
Yes, Steph,
Uh,
Steph.
yeah.
So, really wanted to have you on the show because I was a big fan, a huge fan of the animation you did with Drake, Lil Baby in the studio. I mean, I've seen that video myself personally at least over 50 times. To cheer
Wow.
myself up, I listened to it. Like, the verse is amazing. The animation, like, it felt like that actually happened in the booth. Like, how did you come up with that idea? And from my understanding, I think that's your highest viewed video on YouTube with 5 million views. So, like, it was a smash hit. So, like, explain that whole process, the idea. Like, I would love to hear that. That's the idea coming to fruition.
So is a story of coincidence and persistence where by absolute complete coincidence that happened to be the skit that blew up and sort of took my page with it. But really it was something trending because before I was sort of doing lots of trending things on TikTok. So whatever made me laugh, if I had time to animate it, I would just animate it. And someone had done something similar, as is normally the case, and I was like, well, I could give that a cool twist in my quirky South Parky style or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
literally, that was it. It was this. I made a previous one, so I already had the Drake character. So I was like, well, I can make this one pretty quick. Some of it's already done. And yeah, made it. Didn't think too much of it. And then the next day, like all the numbers was just going a bit crazy, and then I'm seeing it posted everywhere, and it was just the whole, because that was really my first time something going properly viral. So yeah, and then since then, just sort of that was the video that sort of pushed me in the direction of making more studio skits as well. So if that one hadn't have gone viral, I don't know if we would have things like DragonFlow Z or stuff like that. So it's funny how things kind of just work out like that. But
What's
yeah.
what was the taking a couple steps back though, like before the viral moment, all of that, like how did you get into animation?
So I've always had a thing for storytelling, and I've like from real young, like I would make my own comics, and then like I don't know if you have Microsoft PowerPoint. Well, back in the day, Microsoft PowerPoint was the closest thing I had to animation software, so I'd make little web comic-y type things in there, and yeah, sort of went to university, studied how to do 3D animation, like type of stuff you'd see in feature films, like photorealistic stuff like that. Um, then when I graduated, came out and sort of I was working in the film industry as like it was a really weird niche job where I was doing visual effects for a bit, and then I was also doing like stereography, which is like building the 3D into films back when we used to watch films in 3D. So music as well, music production was another avenue where I was trying to, again, all of this is me just trying to find the best medium to tell my story, right? Whatever the
Mm-hmm.
story was. And the journey sort of just slowly led to basically where I was like a video animator person for the company I work for. And that was like in a marketing team for like a car company that manage a bunch of the car companies in the UK. And yeah, when the lockdown happened a few years back, they put lots of our guys on furlough. I went on furlough, didn't know if I was going to keep my job. And more just to keep busy and keep my skills sharp. That's when I started the page. And it wasn't so much where I was like, all right, this is my goal. I'm trying to get it to 1 million by this date or something specific by that date. Sorry, my dog is doing something that is really. Hey, don't do that. Sorry about that, guys.
No worries, man.
But
No worries. No worries.
yeah, where was I? So my
You talking
damn it,
about
Aries, you done messed up my flow, boy.
you were talking about the pandemic and trying to keep your skills
Oh yeah.
sharp. Yeah, yeah. Don't worry.
So
Don't worry.
yeah,
We got you.
when the pandemic hit and I didn't know if I was going to keep my job or not, that's sort of when I started the channel. And the original idea was just I wanted to animate the vines that the like classic vines that I really loved because Vine I really loved Vine back in the
That is
day.
such a
So
throwback. That was such a great app.
Oh, it's a
such a great app,
phenomenal
man.
app, man.
Yeah. So and I thought, well, vines are really short. Animation's normally a long, arduous process, but if I could do something under 20 seconds, I should be able to do them quite regularly, especially if I keep the style quite simple kind of thing. So yeah, doing that in the pandemic had more time than I ever had before. So I just focused on that and it was sort of going really slow for a really long time. Like for maybe almost a year, barely getting any kind of traction. Like maybe I had 5,000 followers on Instagram, nothing on YouTube, nothing really on TikTok. Um, and then slowly but surely, so I made some videos for a guy called Marcus Detroit International. Check him out if you haven't checked him out on my page. He's got one of the funniest series on my page called The
Okay.
Adventures of Marcus. And he reached out to me and he told me the story. It's called The Wheelchair Story. And to this day, it's still one of the funniest videos I've ever heard, or stories I've ever heard. Probably not just because I made it. It just happens to be that I happen to be the animator that made it.
Okay.
Leave it alone, boy. Jesus. These puppies, man. Why? But yeah, he sent me a story and it was one of the funniest stories I've ever heard. I think it's one of the funniest stories on the internet right now. And that was the first thing where I got a little bit of traction on Instagram. So I was like, all right, maybe there is something. And I started getting a bit of work from Instagram. I was like, you know what? I would have to work as hard as I do at my regular 9 to 5. But if I wanted to, I could probably survive doing, off this Instagram thing. So I was like, all right, cool. And then, yeah, just kept at it. And then TikTok slowly but surely started picking up a bit where Marcus, he posted the videos I made of him. And in one night, he got like 500,000 views. And again, the most I've ever got is like 3,000 views or something like this on TikTok. So the fact that he, using my animation or whatever, got that many views, I was like, damn, that.
You
Well,
gotta
at
do it
least it's not
yourself.
the
You gotta do it
videos that's the
yourself at
problem.
least.
It's the algorithm that ain't giving me no shine, but the videos have that potential. And again, persistence, just stuck at it. Guys, I'm doing an interview. No playing. I might have to go next door, guys, because like this is really unprofessional, man. I'm trying to tell my story, and these damn puppies making all kind of noise and messing the place. But you know what? I'll just get to the point. So, motherfucking puppies don't mess up my damn interview.
Gotta hide
So
from
my
it.
wife isn't here, I'm afraid, guys. I'm the one babysitting tonight. And yeah, it's a drama. But yeah, so when his video blew up, that was the real thing where I was like, okay, this is something I should really try and focus on. And that's where I tried to make it bang one out every day and make it more of an inevitable process. If I pump one out every day, at some point the shit will blow up. And the Drake skit happened to just be that skit. So again, persistence meets coincidence.
Got it.
And the rest is history.
Were you a fan of the song? Were you a fan of the two artists, or was it just coincidental? Like that was the hot song at the moment. You knew it had a following. All right, let me just try my hand at this. Like, how did you
So
decide when to like pick up the skit, which area, the whole 9 yards?
So what I find funny is a lot of people look at my page as like a Lil Baby fan page, and that was the first time I've really ever heard of Lil Baby or heard him rap or anything like that. I was a fan of Drake, and more often than not, if Drake drops an album, I'll listen to it eventually, kind of thing. I feel like I'd heard the song before, but not really thought much of it because at the time I wasn't really focusing on music skits particularly like that. It was only like I had a few music skits already. Like I think I had a Tupac one or something like that. But yeah, it was more just the case of I happened to come across something that was quite funny in relation to this, which then gave me the idea to sort of tweak it for what it became.
Got it.
Um, and then from there, the studio skits started. Yeah, I started just making studio skits more. All right, how do I make songs funny? How can I tell stories within the song? How can I set it in a place where, there can be a running storyline like him losing his bus pass or, that kind of stuff. So,
Got it. Got it.
yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever experienced like you put out a skit on someone and then like maybe a rapper or something like that, and then they reach out to you like, yo, I didn't fuck with that. I didn't appreciate that.
So, so far, and that's one thing I always have in mind, isn't it? I'm like, well, these guys at this point especially are probably going to see this eventually,
I
right?
mean, they
So,
have to. 5 million views, they have to hear about it at that point in time.
and at some point I expect I'm trying to build my status to a level where I could be in a room with some of these people at some point, maybe for a film deal or just some event or whatever. I don't know, right? But with that in mind, I'm always mindful to sort of, try and keep the joke in good taste. And so far, so good. I haven't had anyone, like some people have come at me, but no one's come at me with the wrong kind of energy. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I will say
yeah.
your humor is very tasteful. I can say that much. It doesn't degrade. It doesn't make one person seem not as good as the other. It's just very tasteful. Like even the scene when the audio technician like takes the power off the studio system, and the baby is still going. I was like, yo, that is so funny because that's exactly how I think it happened in the booth. But yes, I think definitely for True, it is very tasteful. But with that being said, I remember you mentioning South Park. So why South Park type animation? Were you a fan of all the seasons? It feels like a South Parky to me a little bit.
So the way when people ask me what I do, the way I describe myself is I'm basically Black South Park because
Okay.
Black South Park mixed with music kind of thing. And yeah, from way younger than I should have been watching it. Like I've been watching South Park from way back in the 90s on my little TV back when we only had 5 channels out here in the UK, and we used to get it on Channel 4 on a Friday night, 9:30, which was after my bedtime. But yeah, man, from back there, something about their humor where it's, and I ain't trying to catch no smoke with anyone that likes Family Guy, but there's something I've always been able to respect about them that I can't respect about Family Guy, where although they are wild with a lot of their concepts and they'll be racist and they'll be, anti-Semitic and all of these kind of things, they're really intelligent about it. And if you understand them, you can't help but feel like most of it, not all of it, but most of it is in good taste. And I feel like more so than it, and I like how they don't try to be fancy. Their whole simple, wacky style added to their humor. And that was one of the things that sort of I tried to turn on its head, where most people, when they're trying to animate, are trying to animate like the best animation they see on TV kind of thing. And it's like, they can't do it because they're one person, or you'll do it, but it'll take absolutely forever. So it's like, well, I knew from a logical sense, I'm not trying to be that guy. That's not going to work. Not at this stage, anyway. Maybe I could build up to a thing where someone will give me a bunch of money to make an animation or something. But for now, if I have to do it myself, I have to keep it simple so that I can make a bunch of them. But I don't want it to look or feel shit. So that's when South Park came into mind. And not just South Park. Who was it? There was what are they called? Nutshell animations? No, not nutshell animations. I can't remember what they're called, but they're like stick figure. They're a big YouTube channel, right? And they've got stick figure type guys as well. You probably recognize my influence from them a little bit as well. But from both of them, I realized simplicity can be used to add to the humor. And although I didn't really have a vision of what it was supposed to look like, I was like, well, as long as it's distinct and simple and nice to look at, I'm sure we can figure it out as we go along. So yeah, it sort of started with South. What is that channel called? Dang, not ADF. AD. It's got like a ADSF or something like that. ADFD, ADAD, ADH, something like that. Some of your viewers might know what I'm talking about because it's huge, like huge YouTube channel, and they're like 10 years old or whatever. So yeah, man, that's sort of how it all came to be from that sort of perspective, I suppose, all the style and all of that.
Okay.
And what comes next? Like, where do you see yourself venturing off to and kind of expanding?
So eventually I want to get into feature films. I'm at the stage now where I'm trying to build a team so that I can start making bigger, longer, more epic animations in-house. So yeah, building Studio 27 into something that can compete with Pixar is probably the long-term goal, you know, making some kind of black Pixar equivalent.
That'd be dope, man.
Yeah, and until we get there, probably DragonFlow Z is the thing I'm focusing most on. Like, there's other cool things I'll always be doing on the side, but DragonFlow Z is my baby, where that I feel is the thing which, how do I say it without sounding like an asshole? That's the thing which I feel like I'm doing, which no one else is doing. You know, if you like hip hop and you like anime, then that should be one of the best shows your eyeballs have ever seen, really. You know, but
I've seen some of your Madara sketches on YouTube and Goku sketches. I like those.
yeah. So, I mean, anime is one of my main things as well, in the sense where, as a storyteller, anime has been probably the most inspiring genre that I look to.
What's like your top 3 animes? I know you're probably gonna get a lot of heat for this, so be prepared. So let me hear your top 3.
So it's not even that controversial, really. One Piece is up there.
Of course.
Hunter x Hunter is up there.
Okay.
And maybe controversially, Attack on Titan. I haven't read it, but if it finishes not rubbish, then to me that's probably one of the best ones ever made. So yeah, that can have the third slot.
That's
what about you guys?
That's a solid 3. I agree with One Piece. I agree with Hunter x Hunter. That's my number 1 for me. Okay. My number 2 would have to be, might be controversial, Naruto. And then number 4, I was really a big fan of Bleach. I like Bleach a lot. Big fan of Bleach.
Fan of the big 3. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, but Hunter x Hunter is my number 1. Like, hands down. Watched that like 7 times. So big fan of that one.
Yeah, Hunter x Hunter, it's that ant arc. That ant arc, boy. I haven't seen many things better than that. Period. So
yeah, I mean, the Ant King was a very like deep, twisted, but had like I wouldn't say humility, but like his character, he wasn't a bad guy, but he wasn't a good guy. But he was
the best character ever. He was the best bad guy ever, in my opinion. I ain't seen a better bad guy than Merwin.
Yes, I agree. For sure. So if you had an opportunity where someone came to you besides Drake or Lil Baby, if you had an opportunity to create a music video, that's their only video that they have, like, who would you want to collaborate with?
See, I don't like, my loyalty wouldn't be to the artist, it would be to the song. So there's many artists who I would love to collaborate with. Like just obvious ones: Kendrick, J. Cole, Big Sean, Drake. Well, you said not Drake and Lil Baby. So Kanye, even though he's a bit right now, but still
he's a hot topic right now.
He's a hot topic right now, but does it detract?
When isn't he a hot topic?
You know what I'm saying? So
That's a good point. That's a good
is
point.
I wouldn't let that get in the way of me having an opportunity to work with one of the greatest musical geniuses of our time. So you
No,
know,
that's the right way to think of it. That's the right way to think of it.
yeah,
Because you know, people not
um,
around forever.
yeah. Joyner Lucas as well. Um,
Would you work with
so there's
Prince?
like I was saying, man, there's a lot of dudes out here who got the heat, and they will be featuring in DragonFlow Z eventually as well. But
What about Prince? I
yeah,
feel like you could probably come up with a really cool Prince animation.
Prince. See, I could do something cool with Prince, but I don't know if it would be the video I would want to make most. Like like MJ would be more my personal. Like MJ's got a few songs where I could go absolutely bonkers. Like if I could do a video for Earth Song or Man in the Mirror or any of the ones where he's got like a 5 minute outro, yeah, where he absolutely just goes in his bag, yeah,
I
yeah,
feel you.
I'll have lots of fun with all of that, man.
Okay, all
So
right.
yeah.
So, which part of London did you grow up in? Grew up in? Where did you? I guess what really sparked the interest to go into animation? Was it watching South Park as a kid? I know you mentioned you created comic books, like a little bit more before where you are today.
So I grew up in East London and I live in South London, uh, Croydon, edge of South London. Um, and so my dad was a video editor, like as like a second job, he was a video editor. So, and back in those days before the digital era, like everything was analog. So he would hog up the whole TV for the evening, and then he'd have a separate monitor for his editing tablet-y software thing, and it was all very, very retro. But just seeing the little cartoony animations just off the titles and stuff that he would put on screen when I was like, 5, 6, 7, that kind of thing, was probably where I was like, this video stuff is quite cool. It'd be cool to get into that kind of thing. Um, and then again, like I said before, it wasn't anything specifically to do with animation per se. I did love anime from a young age. So from Dragon Ball Z, I was like, oh man, it'd be cool to make a show like Dragon Ball Z. But I didn't even know it was called anime back then. It was just, I wanted to make cartoons. And then it was just a case of living my life, picking up different skills from different places, which made me a better storyteller. And then again, when the pandemic hit, it was okay, what can I do to tell my story in a way that works for me? Because I was tried to be a filmmaker and make lots of videos and things like that for a while, but there's lots of logistical issues with, making your own short films, like locations and finding actors and just having no budget. That's a rich man's hobby. So in order to get around my own brokenness, I was like, well, if I can animate it, and I had the skills of animation, again, coincidentally, just from what I'd done as a day job and from what I studied at uni and all that kind of stuff, is like, well, I know how to use the software I use well enough to animate, but it's not like how regular people animate, where most people will draw frame by frame and use a computer to help them out that way. I don't really draw my stuff. It's more like puppets. So I can make the puppets in my style and animate the puppets to do cool movements. And where I've got my VFX background, I can add fire and lightning and wind and all this kind of explosions to make it all more interesting than it should be. And then where I've done the music production, I can throw that in and know how to cut to beat and edit to a beat and use the energy of a music to drive, I won't say climax of a song, 'cause that kind of sounds kind of homo, but like you're always trying to build to the crescendo of the story, innit? The punchline, let's
Yes,
say.
yes.
And it's the same whether you're doing comedy, whether you're doing story, whether you're doing music. You're always trying to tap into that rhythm that can build up to make that punchline hit.
I would say that your
So
animation are always in sync. Like the what they're
yeah,
doing, the music, the pauses, always in sync. So I definitely get where you're coming from for sure, for sure.
yeah. So it was never. I never really had a vision to be an animator per se. It was just, well, again, how all these things seem to fall into place. It was what I was doing at the time, and then it just seemed to be a thing where I'm at a stage in my life where all of these skills could just fall into one thing now. And where the world seems to appreciate it and I enjoy making them, and now I can do it enough to sort of earn enough to live off it. It's like, all right, cool. I guess I'm an animator now. I
Gotcha.
ain't know, but I guess that's what it is.
Mm.
And it's, again, for me, I see myself as a storyteller, right? Who happens to be doing animation right now. Before I was doing music, before I was doing film. One day I'll probably go back into doing film, probably animation film, maybe some non-animation film. Who knows? Maybe some TV. Who knows? But yeah, I try not to only think of myself as an animator, because there are more stories to tell, man. Like, yeah.
Gotcha.
So we'll just see how
So what do you think
it
of
all
the
plays out.
industry when it comes to like black representation? From my understanding, I only know of one, I wouldn't say major, maybe there are a lot more, but I know of one animation studio called The Art. This
Okay.
black owner who has an animation studio in Japan. But like, what is animation representation in London or in general as a whole industry, like from your understanding?
Um. So over here, it's it depends, because I've worked in TV, film, and now sort of media, and then now sort of the online YouTube space as well. So I feel like the TV space is very much, there's a lot of ceilings that probably still need to be broken. But if you work, it's not. I don't know about, because your racism and our racism is quite different, right? And I would say, well, our one is more of a tribalism where, because there's not many of us in a lot of these positions, it's like we're new to the club, so we have to sort of play the game to a degree, to break through those ceilings, right? But it's not impossible or whatever. It might be harder than, you know, your peers, but it's not impossible by any means. It's just, perseverance, I think, anyway. I think with film, a lot of our good actors seem to be ending up in on your neck of the woods. In terms of animation, I feel like it's quite a meritocracy kind of thing, where if you're good at what you do, like, it's very, everyone's just jumping around the same pools kind of thing. Like, with film, it's literally thousands of people working on each film. So it's like you're a very, very, very small piece of a huge pond, and that's why you're normally working, like, you might have a contract for a year or whatever, then you'll jump to another house for a year and all that kind of stuff. So that's more about your skills. And then I would say on YouTube or in the online space, I would say it's what you would expect, in the sense where, like, in general, the black audience or black cultural, if it's not, that sort of, what do you call it? Like, what, black suffering porn or whatever they call it, if it's not that kind of stuff, the more comedy stuff, it has its market, but it's not the same market as if you were just making cat videos, right? Or if I just film my baby doing something cute, right? That's going to get way more views than any video I'm likely to make, period, right? But to me, that's just the way it is. I just feel like, well, it's not really a race thing. It's just a thing where, well, the things we're interested in generally aren't as, what's the word, universal, let's say, as, unless they've broken through, they're not necessarily as universal as, like, my show, DragonFlow Z, right? Because it has a lot of hip hop artists in it. Well, there are genres in the world, rock, or pop. If I'd done it on any of those genres, it's gonna be a bigger show, because there's reggaeton, even. There's more reggaeton people globally, at least in the buyer's market, than there are hip hop. So I don't know, bro. I think it's just a thing where hip hop it's a prominent thing in itself. Um, it's like, we are mainstream and we are the ones that start trends, but it's like, well, whatever we do, if Kim Kardashian does it, she will get more credit for it, or blow up, or run with it, or whatever kind of thing.
Because of
So
us, though.
I think the ease of appropriation is
Not
part of
because
the
of
issue.
not because of.
Huh?
I'd say I'd agree, but because of us, not because of her.
Well, that's it. We do the groundwork, and then once it's all done, they'll just take it and run with it, kind of thing. And it's like, well, it is what it is. But You know what? In all honesty, I try to focus as little on that as possible. I feel like with the whole racism thing, especially over here, it exists, but it's not something like it exists like poverty exists, like hardship exists, like inequality exists. It's like many annoying things exist, but it's the same answer for all of it. You just got to persevere. Whatever you want, you can get, and you've just got to persevere towards it. Period. You
Gotcha.
know, um,
All right.
is
So,
what it is at the
so
end of
here's
the
a
day.
here's a maybe a more interesting question. Like, how was your YouTube check?
How's my what?
YouTube check with all those views. You normally get
Mm.
like they normally pay you out some money because of the viewership,
Okay.
the advertising. Like, where the check that you receive, or I'm assuming you got one. Is it
hmm
as lucrative as you thought it would be? Or you're like, all right, I can see it. All right, if I hit this threshold, it starts to get a little better.
Okay, so again, because I wasn't trying to be a YouTuber, this wasn't in my plans. So I hadn't done pre-research into what to expect as a YouTube earner or anything like that. When I started earning, well, when I started getting views on YouTube, I was like, oh snap, maybe I can. And then what did I look on? Is it there's some kind of website you can look on to see your potential earnings? Because there was a whole issue where for about 4 months I couldn't actually sign up to the payment program, and I had over 100,000 subscribers, but because of some issue with my email, it just wasn't working. And I thought it was an issue with them; they thought it was an issue with me, and I was just losing all this money for all these views that I wasn't getting any cash on. So at first I thought, well, there wasn't, it can't be that serious. And then suddenly I'm like, well, maybe it is quite serious. And then when it started coming in, it was far lesser than it could have been because of the type of videos I was making, which is to say, because I was making videos with like Drake's music and
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick's music and J. Cole's music, they get all the money for those videos. I can keep the views and the videos can stay up, but they're actually getting all the money for those videos, right? So
Is it like a
a lot of
copy?
the
Is like a
huh?
because
Like
is it
monetization.
because like intellectual
Yeah, well,
content?
yeah, they have the copyright claim on it.
Uh,
So for them, it's like free promotion, not free promotion. They're earning money on it, but it's like promotional. So it's not. That's why they don't ever give me any smoke. Where it's like, oh, you're using our thing or anything like that. But
got it.
it's
Okay.
only it's only if I'm working with another comedian who's doing like a spoof of an artist, or if I'm working with maybe a lower level artist who's giving me the whitelist or permissions to monetize it. Or in the rare case where now I'm at a stage where I've worked with Warner and a few of these other major labels and they've given it the green light as well. So there are ways around it, but for the most part, I earn far less than most people think on YouTube, which is why I try and push the DragonFlow merch and Patreon and things so much. Because yeah, I'm earning as much as any regular person doing a regular job. You know, even though I'm working way more, probably 60, 70 hours a week getting these videos out, I'm probably earning, I don't know, in the region of maybe 30K ish, I imagine, a year, something like that. But then the cool thing is, where times were hard after I got married and the YouTube page kind of died from a monetization standpoint, I had to figure out how to use the whole, YouTube thing. Well, just figure out how to earn more different kind of money from it. And that's where I started earning just through commissions, which can kind of match the YouTube now. So if I feel like being lazy, I can rely on YouTube. But nowadays, I don't even really rely on YouTube too much for the main bread and butter. But
That's cool, man.
I say all that to say, I'm still on regular people money, innit? I still live in a one bedroom flat in London,
Okay.
in the ghetto, basically. So I'm still waiting for that big check so that I can move into my nice house or whatever.
Okay.
So yeah, man, but I can't complain. Like, I can afford anything I want within reason. So I'm not complaining, and I do what I love for a living. I didn't plan to do this, but I love what I'm doing. I love that I can tell my stories, which is all I really care about. So yeah, man,
All
we'll
right.
just see where it all goes.
What would you say biggest inspiration? It could be like
Um,
art related, animation related. It could be anything.
yeah,
Type of
I
food.
mean, So I would say people wise, maybe my dad, my karate sensei, they gave me the stuff. They're the ones that gave me the mindset of perseverance, which is the bedrock for everything else.
I agree 100%.
And then in terms of from an artistic standpoint, I would probably say there's many inspirations, but I would say One Piece, anime as a whole, like I said before, but One Piece specifically, Monkey D. Luffy, his whole ethos to life is kind of how I carry myself in general. Dragon Ball Z as well, I would say, because I have a history where I done karate for like 12 years, and I used to be in the
I was going to
England
ask you
karate
about that
team and things
next.
like that. So
So you can really kick
So
some
it's one of
black
these
belt,
things where
black belt, brown
uh,
belt. What did you stop at? What belt were you?
so I stopped at black belt. When I
Oh,
when I got to black belt,
all
I
right.
sort of retired and went off to university or college, and went on to live my life kind of thing. But I only brought through that in to say, well, when I was training for that, because of shows like Dragon Ball Z and how Goku used to go crazy in the hyperbolic time train and things like that, I would turn up to training with weights on my ankles and my wrists, and my sensei would look at me like a mad person. And I'm like, y'all just don't understand, okay? I'm out here moving different. I'm trying to be the strongest, period, okay? Like, so the
Oh
whole, like,
man,
people
I'm
don't
loving
understand, like, anime is in my
it.
soul. Like, the whole, how it's a whole lifestyle for me, innit? And
That's
then yeah,
funny.
with One Piece being the pinnacle of that, I would say is One Piece and South Park. I would say are the two. And then from a hip hop perspective or music perspective, let's say, Michael Jackson in terms of not just what he done in music, but how his music transcends music. Like his music is spiritual for reasons I don't quite understand, but
I
like
agree,
so
man.
many of his songs enter into that spiritual kind of realm, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do in a level where I'm trying to make videos that make you have goosebumps, give you that Holy Ghost tingle, and tapping into that energy, however that formula works, right? But he was one of the masters of that kind of thing. Just as a creator, as a creative. So that as well, and then maybe Jay-Z as a hustler, because I feel like to go from 0 to 100, or like to just hustle your way to $1 billion, right? I have to respect it. And where like the animation YouTube content creators space, it's a complete wild west. Like you're only as worth as much as you're able to talk yourself up to be, and you're only build as much hype as you're able to build. So it's all a hustle kind of thing, and like the amount of lessons, or like I try and yeah, the school of hard knocks is a school I'm trying to learn and graduate from, because like I'm trying to make $1 billion like everybody else. I'm trying to make, like I say, a black Pixar that will be worth
Bro,
$1 billion, making $1 billion films at some point. So, and I feel like he's laid out the blueprint for that. So,
you have the talent to do it, man.
respect to
Like,
him.
I'll say one thing. The first time I saw your baby Drake video, I had the goosebumps. So you're already out there giving people the goosebumps. So
Well, that's good.
you got the
That's a
talent
good
for it,
sign.
man, for sure. You got the talent for it.
Mm. I appreciate that, man. Appreciate it for real.
So what was your first comic book? I know you mentioned comic books, that you used to make comic books back in the days. So what was the name of the book, and who was the main character, and what was his superpower, I'm assuming?
So I never see, these were the days before Perseverance, right? And the big difference is, where I never actually made it as far as a whole comic book or a whole finished storyline. It's like, well, I would start a page or two of a cool idea, and then I would just move on to another idea or another project or another song. Or I was one of these free spirited creatives where I would just go wherever the wind took me.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, it was like a web comic, so it wasn't like a paper comic, but like I had 3 episodes, and the episodes had a beginning, middle, and end,
I hope so.
and yeah, he was captain. He was called Captain Carrot, and
Carrot or
he
Kara?
was Carrot, as in like the
Oh, carrot,
vegetable.
vegetable. Okay.
Yeah. So he was inspired by a combination of there's a book called Captain Underpants, which I liked when I was younger,
Yep, familiar.
and Crash Bandicoot. So the bad guy in Captain Carrot was basically a copy and paste of the bad guy from Crash Bandicoot, Dr. Neo Cortex or whoever he was. And yeah, they were little just 30-second, 1 minute adventures of these guys. And you know what's weird? Thinking about it now, they're quite similar tonally to the skits that I make now, where they're little 20, 30-second to a minute kind of episodes where it's just two characters having a little mini story, which at the end of it, I'm trying to make you laugh, right? And
Got it.
again, it was before social media or any of that kind of stuff. So the only person that ever really saw it was my mum. She laughed, so I was like, cool, job done. But
Got it. Got it. All right. Cool.
yeah.
So when you're working on your animations and when you get inspired or like jotting down a skit, how do you stay locked in? Like, how do you block out the noise? Or when you putting out any type of content and maybe, people are in the comments, maybe even hating or not as positive and things of those sorts, like how do you block out the noise and kind of stay focused on the goal at hand?
So, the PC answer, all right?
We want the real answer.
answer.
We want the real answer.
Right.
No PC answer. We want the real answer.
Well, that answer is just discipline, right? Through karate and, like I said, my dad and growing up in a certain way with certain things installed, just having discipline and being able to say what I'm going to do and do what I say on the things I care about, at least. That helps. But the real answer, if I'm being really honest, and it's more because animation in particular is so grueling, so you need something to just help you stay in the flow of things a bit. And I would say that's marijuana. That definitely helps me a lot. Get to a good place where I can, because like there's a certain obsessive personality trait with it as well, where like I'll be working on the music for the song, like a remix, let's say, for a skit, and I don't know, I'll literally, I mean, it'll drive my wife crazy. I will literally have a 20-second loop. Maybe it's the hook, or maybe it's the verse, or maybe where the verse goes into the hook, or something like that. And it's not quite hitting now. I want it to hit, and I'll just have it on loop for like 4 hours, guys. And like, I don't know what that is, right? But it's like I'll have it on for 2 hours and be like, this ain't working. Smoke a joint, and suddenly I can listen to it for another 2 hours, no problem. And eventually we get there, For me, when I create, so I've written a book as well, which I haven't released yet, but when I eventually get enough status for people to care about things aside from animation, I might release that book. Because
we gotta talk about that quickly then.
We'll get into that a little bit, but for me, it's from a creative standpoint, by far the best thing I've ever done or made or may make. Like, if I die, that's the thing I want to be remembered for, period. But what I would say is what it taught me in terms of the creative process, because again, storytelling, writing is probably my favorite form of storytelling because it's so pure. And like with animation, if I want to do something crazy, there's also the factor that, well, I've also got to be able to animate that crazy shit, Whereas if I'm writing, if I come with a crazy idea, I just write the crazy idea and the crazy idea just exists, So what was cool about writing that story is it made me enter a whole different realm of creating, where it was like, all right, well, I feel like everything that, like, if the best storyteller of all time was working on this story, he would find a way to get from point A to point B in the most epic way possible, in a way that's going to get tingles and goosebumps and stuff, right? So if that's the case, therefore the way must exist. I just have to dive into the ocean of potential and inspiration and all this type of thing to find the answer, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if I'll find it in my dreams, if I'll find it when I'm high, if I'll find it in the shower, if I'll find it whilst watching South Park. But I know if I open myself up to this ocean of potential and just sort of keep my mind set in a certain way, again, marijuana helps. It really does help to sort of allow you to see things in a much more expansive, interconnected way.
Absolutely.
That that was the key for me, just sort of having this sort of intrinsic faith in the process itself. So it's like, for example, the next episode of DragonFlow Z, I've started it, but I don't know how it's going to finish. I don't quite know all the bits, but I know it's going to be fucking insane, right? That much I do know, right? I don't know how I'm going to do it, right? I don't know how I'm going to animate it quite yet, but I do know the greatest animator of the greatest version of me, or someone trying to do what I'm doing, could do it, right? And I'm trying my best to be that guy. So with this faith, knowing, well, I've got a track record of finding a way, it's just a case of, well, where there's a will, there is a way. If you look hard enough in the ocean, the Lord does provide, you know? So yeah, man. And again, if I hadn't have written that book, I don't know, I feel like I might have, because
So what
where
is the
I
book?
might see a
So what is the
comment
book
that,
about? What's the book about then?
all right, so we'll go off on a tangent on the book. So although I make you know, sort of really sort of wacky comedy skits, and you know, I'm quite X-rated or adult with sort of my lingo and things like that, right? One of my deep sort of hobbies or things that I've spent way more time than I should have studying in my own free time is like philosophy, theology, religion, all of it. Just because I'm fascinated by anything that's powerful enough to convince humans to believe in it, right? Anything that surrounds the idea of belief and all this kind of stuff really fascinates me. So
Mm-hmm.
where I've always had this interest in all these different philosophies and religion and all this kind of stuff, this book, right? And again, storytelling. This book was me attempting to write the most epic story of all time by definition, okay? And what by definition could or would make a story the best story of all time, right? And I'm literally trying to compare this before I'm writing it or as I'm building it up. I'm trying to compare this to the best stories we have going right now. So things like Moby Dick, why is that a historic tale? Why has that survived for hundreds of years? The Bible, why is that a story that people believe in so deeply and has survived for thousands of years? And people, like, what is it about the Bible that makes the Bible, right? Really tapping into the deepest levels of storytelling and trying to tap into what it is that why it is we as humans care about stories and all this kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So eventually all that came into this idea, right? Cool, I've got it. I want to tell a story from the beginning of time until the end of time. Now that surely shouldn't be possible or make sense or whatever, because what kind of character or whatever could be there from the beginning, middle, and end and all this kind of stuff, right? But then I saw a quote from Einstein, and then it suddenly made sense, where he said, time exists because if we didn't have time, everything would happen all at once, right? And I was like, that's really interesting. And it just got a lot of things firing in my brain, because I'm like, one of the philosophical questions I had is, what is a realm that exists beyond time, right? Because I can imagine there must be realms that exist beyond time as we know it and this kind of thing. But a realm beyond time itself, what is that? What would that idea look like? Is that a type of dream you could have? That kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I heard that quote, I'm like, everything happening at once. So it's just like, it's both allness and nothingness sort of simultaneously, really interesting. And it's like, all right, well, I guess that's the place where everything is before it enters the realm of time, right? Before anything has a beginning, it's just existing in this place where it all happens at once, right? So I'm like, all right, well, I've got a starting point where we can have a character that just wants to experience time, all right? Just to understand what it feels like to not have everything happen all at once. So then when I had that idea, it was like, I had a line where it's like, it's a funny thing when you have a new idea. Suddenly it exists, but the potential for all things change. And then from there, I was like, cool, that's the premise for the book, where
I
we've
like
got
that.
this, we've got this spirit or this. I don't even try and define what it is. You might see it as a spirit, you might see it as a god, you might see it as some other form of life yet to be defined or whatever. But basically, it's the idea of this consciousness going on a journey through creation from the very beginning. So, right? So we start off with concepts like known and unknown, which then lead to change, which then leads to vibration, which then leads to light, which then leads to like the universe, which then leads to all these type of things. So we're slowly creating the universe, but from the perspective of the creator, but not in a way that people have seen before. And again, I don't know how we quite got here on this tangent. It sounds too wild, which is why I don't normally bring it up unless people like yourself give me the opportunity to bring it up, because I will jump on the rope if I get a chance to jump on the rope. But like you say, like you can hear, it's quite wild and sporadic, and I
Hey,
know it's not going to really make too much sense until people sort of see it and digest it and
what I'm happy about is that
get
you're
into it.
passionate about it. So when you put it out there, I'll be one of your supporters for sure. So you just send me an email, let me
Oh,
know the book
I
is out there,
appreciate that, man. I
and I'll
will be
purchase it.
hotting you up.
Yes,
I
for
will be
sure.
hotting you up because I'm gonna need people, man. People don't like to read, right? So even if I have millions of followers, I know pushing this thing will be hard. So I will be chasing you up on this, man.
For sure, for sure, for
Devin, you
sure.
too, bro. You too. So
Yeah,
what's your inbox?
yeah. All right, man. So I greatly appreciate the opportunity to interview you. Keep up the good work. You've got a lot of amazing content. I look forward to seeing the next Pixar or Disney studio that's Black owned, Black ran. So yeah, keep doing the good work, man. I love the content.
Yep,
I
absolute pleasure
appreciate it, man.
having you on the
Appreciate you
show.
coming on. Mm. It's
Looking
been a
forward
pleasure being there, guys.
looking
And
looking forward to see what's next.
yeah, before I go, to anyone seeing this, if it's before November, then you guys can look forward to the next episode of DragonFlow Z in November. If you don't know what that is and you like hip hop or anime or anything Marvel or my content in general, go and check that out, okay? Because just go and check that out, all right? If you do know what I'm talking about, next episode, November, get ready, it's coming.
Let's
Somehow, some way, it's
go.
going to be better than the last episode. Okay, so yeah, man, the hype is coming, and if you happen to be watching this in the future after November 2022, then you're lucky because you could just go and watch it right now because it's already there. So I envy you guys, but
Is this a play on time is a constant? Is this like a type of play that you're trying to say right now? If you're in the future, the past, the current. I see it.
I'm
I see
talking to
it.
all timelines right now, guys. We're talking to all timelines, okay?
I love it.
Past, present, and future, okay?
All
Only
right.
y'all need to check out DragonFlow Z. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Sounds good, man. Sounds good, brother.
All right, man.